I blew up a romance scammer's life. This one is fresh and still unfolding, but it's already hit an explosive level. Some details intentionally vague. Context: I'm a woman in my 30s with a reasonably good corporate-type job in a field with lots of room for growth, and am recently back into the dating scene after a decade. I'm kind of a would-be a 10 if she lost 30-olds-looking girl. Beautiful face if a bit chubby, but I never have issues getting a date. I'm not well off, but I'm stable and have a bit of spending money. I live in a large multicultural city, and my ex was an immigrant, so I'm open to dating people of any origin. What happened? A few weeks ago, I met a very charming man from a Latin American country only a couple years younger than me. Seemed very sweet, cuddly, intelligent, family-oriented, emotionally available, educated, and in a good profession back home in his country, and had a lot in common with me. Chemistry seemed amazing inside and outside the bedroom. He was honest that he was in my country on a tourist visa, but hoping to stay. I made it clear I wouldn't be able to help him with that, but we have a fun summer fling while he was here. If he managed to stay or come back, only then would we consider a real relationship. Then the other shoe dropped. A couple weeks and 4 dates in, during a text conversation about my work, he asked me to be his sugar mommy. I initially laughed and assumed it was a joke. He kept pushing and clearly said it wasn't. Of course, feeling insulted by this, I went off on him. He maintained it as a serious ask until I hit a nerve with my complaints about how embarrassed he should be to ask me that. Then he got angry and insulted me for thinking he was serious about it. No apology for being hurtful to me. Obviously, what I did next was take screenshots and cry about it to my closest friends. I was hurt that I was fooled into thinking he liked me and that he thought I needed to pay for a man. My friends started the fuse on what happened next. One of my friends started snooping more on his online presence. Together we found about 6 different Instagram accounts that were him using different variations of his name and different photos of himself, all uploaded in batches. On Facebook, a similar pattern, all very scammy and suspicious looking. He'd been foolish enough on one of his profiles, though, to follow and tag the employer that he was working for illegally on his tourist visa in my country. So I contacted another close friend in a local law enforcement agency that works with immigration. She looked up his file. He had a wife and daughter at home. I released the hounds after that. The friend who helped me investigate online made several group chats on multiple platforms with all of his family, immediate and extended, and friends. She released all the screenshots as well as a rant about how shameful it was. As they started blocking her, she added more people. I found his sister's phone number. She sent her messages on there too. Everyone he knows, including his wife, know he's unfaithful and trying to take advantage of women. 30 minutes after the online bombardment started, I got a rude message from him about how I should be smart enough to know he was joking and he doesn't need to sell himself. I didn't reply. Next step: online immigration reporting form with all the info we found. Work info, employer name and address, his home address, full name, job, photos, screenshots admitting to working. Usually these reports take months to be reviewed, if at all, but I gave the file number to my law enforcement friend. 2 days later, law enforcement officers visited him at home. They found him with a phone number that was issued to a local resident. All his roommates also had numbers issued to the same person, a direct link to the employer. He received a caution for trying to scam me, a no-contact order, and a flag on his immigration file that, based on his country of origin, will likely mean he can never return, as well as a strict warning to not work without authorization. His roommates also received warnings. His employer received a visit next. They found significant proof that they'd been employing him illegally, as well as multiple other people. Their investigation is still ongoing, but so far they are likely to receive tens of thousands in fines or possible jail time. The guy isn't getting deported because the government would have to pay for it, and proceedings take longer than his remaining visa time, but he's now upgraded from a flagged file to a multi-year ban on re-entry to my country. If he bothers me again, though, he will be deported as well. Hope he enjoys going back to his angry wife and the ridicule from everyone he knows. See ya again never. The comments on my appearance are a tongue-in-cheek way of describing how he may have viewed me, and speak more to his failure to select the correct victim profile. It's not that deep, and I don't really care about my appearance very much. Relax a bit, peeps.
Next story.
For context, it was her cousin-in-law. Let's start this story by saying this happened 12 years ago. I'm now happily married with 3 children, and regret absolutely nothing. I was with my new ex for 3 years. I had noticed that she was being extremely controlling. I was expected to give every little detail of my day and tell her my schedule in advance, and if I deviated from that, she would be very upset. She chalked it up to just bad feelings she was having and shrugged it off as her paranoia for past relationships of infidelity. I had never once cheated or strayed, and I never gave her a reason to act like this. It felt unbecoming of my fiancé to act in such a way. Now this is where it gets juicy. After she had asked for my schedule to make plans, as mine tends to be more hectic than hers, I noticed she was texting someone. In my line of work, if I put in more than 40 hours, I have the ability to take time off at will as long as the work is completed at a later date. I was very good friends with a brother, and still am. We laugh about this to this day, and he actively reminds her of it. I messaged him stating I wanted to do something special for her a little bit earlier than our anniversary to make sure it was a special surprise. They both worked in the same fabrication facility. He was a fabricator and she a shipping manager. He was kind enough to let me know her schedule. That's where the discrepancy falls into place. Without my knowledge, she was foregoing overtime. She worked 12-hour shifts Monday through Friday, with the exception of Wednesday, when she would only work half a day. She had been taking Wednesdays off right around the time that she started getting extremely controlling. Lucky for me, I had stacked several days of leisure time up, so taking a Wednesday off for me was not an issue. A few days go by, and Wednesday's here. I put on my work gear and leave for work. I was expecting her to leave as our apartment complex had 2 exits on the same road I could see directly across from a shopping center, so I parked my car near the back and waited. After about an hour, I noticed a very specific red Mustang with a specific decal on the back window. It was her cousin by marriage. I had also done my due diligence to take an old laptop, which we kept on our desk in an office area with a full view of the living room, bedroom door, and bathroom plus the kitchen. I had set it up for remote access and had it alert me when the webcam noticed movement. Giving her the benefit of the doubt, I thought he may be dropping something off or coming over to assist her with something, as her family sometimes does. Sure enough, a message came through, so I remote into my laptop. He walks through the door without skipping a beat. She unbuttons his shirt and begins kissing him. I created a URL link for the live stream, and as she was preoccupied, we had a family group text and a friend group text. They were both part of it, but at the current time, they were currently indisposed and didn't look at their phones. They didn't even wait. They could have gone to the bedroom. But no, they decided to get freaky-deaky right there on the couch. I sent the link off to the friend group chat and the family group chat. Within minutes, I'm getting calls non-stop from friends and family alike. There was no turning back. She was getting blown up, but she was ignoring her phone. Not until the 4th or 5th call came through did they decide to take a break. For context, the state I live in allows recording of personal property regardless of occupancy. I was the only one on the lease. She wasn't allowed to be on the lease because of poor credit. The call she had picked up was from her cousin's mother, who she was banging. She answers the phone on speaker, and I kid you not, the first words out of his mother's mouth were, "Stop fucking my son." They both became rigid, and she began to stutter over her words, saying, "What are you talking about?" etc. The mother then divulged that there was a live feed of them sent out by me to her family. She grabbed every pillow off the couch and covered herself up. The cousin staggered off, trying to put on his pants and shoes, just to trip himself up and bang his head off of my coffee table. leaving it with a divot. By this time, I had made my way to the front of the apartment complex. I was there to greet the adulterer as he came out of the front exit. He froze and began to cry, apologizing profusely. I'm not going to lie. What happened afterwards wasn't my best moment. And I nearly got into legal trouble if it weren't for the fact that he was trespassing on private property. Let's just say I had a cast for 6 weeks, and he wasn't in any family photos for months. I went up to the apartment, where she was now fully clothed and crying inconsolably. I asked her if it was snot or cum on her face. Then I told her not to answer because it didn't matter anyway. I gave her 1 hour to remove all her belongings, as again, everything in the apartment was mine except for clothes, some makeup, and a few kitchen utensils. Her mother would not let her move in, as she was just filled with embarrassment. Same for her brothers, and the cousin's mother kicked her son out. Rumor spread around our town very quickly, and for a lack of better words, she was untouchable. Edited for bad grammar juju. Edited for UPDAT of proof. No police report for theft of property. I apologize, y'all.
Next story.
Brooke, my sister. Angie, accounting girl. Mark, Milky Toast boss. Victor, vice president of operations. This story is about my sister's first job after graduating from college with a bachelor's degree in business management back in the middle 70s. She was hired by that recording tape company whose advertising tagline was, "Is it real or is it?" Anyway, her job was the travel coordinator for both the sales and tech support teams out in the field to come to the corporate offices periodically for various types of meetings or training, depending on the field employee's specialty. Brooke's responsibilities included booking airline flights, hotels, rental cars, approving per diems, and other travel-related upfront arrangements. It didn't take her long to figure out that there were a lot of no-shows, particularly from the sales staff, who always seemed to have some valid excuse not to make it to the meeting, and often with last-minute cancellations. You know, I've just booked this golf game with my most important client this week, so can you reschedule me? Type of reasons. Seeing how these cancellations were costing the company big bucks, Brooke hatched a plan that created class rosters for each class and would, just like a teacher, make notes as to who showed up and who didn't. After the class was over, she would calculate how much those who didn't show up had cost the company in terms of cancellation fees, missed flights, etc., and present them to Mark. His reaction, typical of a middle manager protecting his little fiefdom, would take her report, tell her I'll look into it, throw it into his inbox, and then promptly forget about it. My sister has a tremendous amount of patience, unless you're being stupid, which, in this case, Mark was, as far as she was concerned. Fast forward a couple of months, the reports are still stacked on top of each other in Mark's inbox, and Brooke's getting real frustrated because these field guys are abusing the time and effort she's putting in while attempting to get them in for their required classes. So one day, Brooke's having lunch in the company cafeteria along with a gal from corporate accounting. They get to talking, and Angie mentions that she's noticed the travel department's expenses are really high percentage-wise compared to others, and asks if Brooke has any idea why. Well, that was all it took. My sister unloaded her frustration with all the cancellations, with no repercussions, thus sending the travel department's budget off the charts, not to mention the fact she wasn't getting any support from Mark towards reducing the numbers. Brooke tells Angie she's got an idea to put an end to the waste, but she wants to get approval from somebody higher up the food chain in order to implement her idea, because she doubts Mark's ability to comprehend, let alone implement. Angie tells Brooke that she thinks she knows exactly who Brooke needs to talk to, and within a couple of days Brooke and Angie are sitting in a plush corner office, talking to the vice president of operations, Victor, explaining the situation. It only took Victor a couple of minutes to make a decision after Brooke described what was going on, plus her idea on how to correct it. And he told Angie that Brooke's idea was brilliant, and that the policy change would become effective on the 1st of month, 10 days later, which he followed up with a memorandum sent to all employees shortly after their meeting was over. Paydays were the 5th and the 20th. Those in the field who had expense accounts had to complete and turn them into accounting by the 5th to be processed and paid along with regular wages, bonuses, and commissions on the 20th. Brooke's policy change idea, with the victor's blessing, was to charge back against the offender's expense, account the costs associated with getting him to his corporate meeting when he didn't show up, airline fares, hotel rooms, rental cars, etc. Sis told me that the first month the policy went into effect, the howls of protest could be heard all over Silicon Valley, as several ended up with minuscule paychecks after the chargebacks. But the policy had exactly the results Brooke wanted. Within 3 months, everyone showed up to their meetings on time as scheduled and virtually without any more no-shows. EPIOOGE. Some adjustments were made to the policy during Sis' tenure, one of them being that if you knew in advance that you couldn't make a scheduled meeting, as long as it was a minimum of 2 weeks' notice, she could then reschedule with /o penalties. Other situations, such as medical emergencies, were judged on a case-by-case basis, but required documentation to prevent the chargeback. Sis only worked at this company about 18 months before a headhunter stole her away to be the plant manager's administrative assistant when the microchip manufacturer, that's in practically everybody's personal computer, decided to build a new facility outside of Silicon Valley. She told her new boss she wasn't moving unless he could find her husband a job within the company. And he did, so they did. And they've been in that area ever since. My sister has had a great career, and I'm very proud of her. EDIT2ADCLARIFIK. Per my sister's input, meetings/trainings were held bi-monthly. But with sales and tech support staff spread over 3 continents, it would often take a year before the same employee would be required to come to a meeting/training at corporate headquarters. Employees were initially notified of their upcoming meeting 6 weeks in advance, with a second notice going out at 4 weeks, a third notice going out at 2 weeks, and a fourth notice going out 1 week in advance. Brooke did not tolerate the excuse, "I didn't know about the meeting," from the slackers. She still doesn't tolerate that type of excuse to this day, even from her grown children. She has a reputation for being scrupulously honest and fair, but also believes in the consequences of play stupid games, win stupid prizes, when it comes to shenanigans. She was given a travel budget to work with, and because her and I both are offspring of a certified public accountant, we learned very early in life to pay close attention to expenses. This background helped her spot the escalating travel costs due to cancellations, no refund policies, etc. due to the no-shows, thus leading to her motivation to bring her department's budget back in line. She's always been very conservative about money management, which has led to her and her husband being able to enjoy retirement without financial worries. Brooke did not teach any of the meeting/training seminars. Her duties at these events consisted of making sure the facilities were set up appropriately for the type of class, checking participants in, and other similar tasks. Actual seminars were taught by corporate training staff. As noted in the original story, sales staff were the worst offenders when it came to no-shows. Tech support people were rarely missing in action, per Brooke. The golf reference was simply an example of the type of excuses used for not attending that she would receive. It should be noted again that the chargebacks for not showing up when scheduled were not deducted from the employee's basic wages and commissions. They were simply charged back to the employee's submitted expense reports. By not showing up, the employee was stealing from the company the costs of getting that employee to corporate headquarters. This policy change put an end to that quickly.